heard of comfort food? The kind of food you like to eat regardless of its nutritional value, but it just makes you feel good. Did you know movies operate the same way? That's right, we're going to talk about the movies that we like regardless of critical praise, box office totals, and overall audience reception. These are the movies we love for being what they are, why they are, and how they are. These are our comfort flicks. Guide to the Galaxy is a fascinating case in the history of adaptations of books because Hitchhikers was not a book first. In fact, this series has been many things way before a movie ever surfaced. It started out as a radio series on BBC Radio 4 in 1978, then it was made to a book series, which then became a 6-part TV miniseries, which then became a punishingly difficult command prompt video game, until finally in 2006 it broke through that last barrier and became a movie. What do all these versions have in common? Douglas Adams had a hand in writing all of them. It's important to note that fact because there was a wealth of speculation and presumption that when Douglas Adams died, the studio grabbed the script and butchered it. In reality, all the major changes that were done for the film all came from Adams himself. Screenwriter Karey Kirkpatrick maintained that their only contribution to the script was tightening it up to give it a better flow. So Hamakavula, the Vogue Sphere, the POV gun all came from Adams. Adams had always decreed that every version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy should stand on its own and offer something unique to make it stand out from the rest, and in my humble opinion, mission accomplished. Yes, I love this movie. I saw it 6 times in the theaters, I raved about it ad nauseum, I couldn't get enough of it. And before you get all up in arms, yes, I have read the book way before this movie, and it was one of the most pleasurable reading experiences of my life. And yes, I have seen the TV miniseries, and I love that as well. The video game, on the other hand, kicked my ass multiple times, so we don't talk to each other that much. Believe it or not, you can love more than one version. You are allowed, and there's a lot to love about this movie. The film was directed by music video director Garth Jennings, who would later direct the coming-of-age film Son of Rambo and would play a crackhead in Hot Fuzz. Originally, director Jay Roach was slated to direct the film, and thanks to his work on the Austin Powers films and Meet the Parents, he had the clout to get the wheels turning on this film. Douglas Adams had been standoffish about Americans producing the film, fearing that they would turn it into a Star Wars good versus evil extravaganza, and anyone who knows this series will tell you, that is definitely not Hitchhikers. Fortunately, thanks to Jay Roach, Adams was able to maintain creative control on the script, and he even was able to add new elements to make this version stand out among the rest. Interestingly enough, when it looked like Roach was going to direct, early casting possibilities included Hugh Laurie as Arthur Dent and Jim Carrey as Zaphod Beeblebrox. And there's a part of me always left to wonder what would have happened with that. But while we're on the subject of casting, unlike J.K. Rowling, Adams was extremely loose with casting options. He openly declared the only character who needed to be British was Arthur Dent, and truly, he is right. The character of Arthur Dent is meant to be the quintessential average British everyman. He's a person who has absolutely no ambition beyond just getting a nice cup of tea. For most other stories, this character would be bland as hell. The heart and soul of all the comedy comes from this timid, unassuming character being thrown into a universe that is the embodiment of pure lunacy. For myself, the joy of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has always been about the way Douglas Adams criticizes societal quirks by showing them from an alien perspective, how the bureaucracy can be dangerous when taken to the extreme because of the absence of compassion, imagination, and even common sense. And that's not all. It even takes the time to criticize the puerile nature of politics. How many times these people will elect someone simply because they put on a good show, regardless of the fact that, in all likelihood, they didn't say anything of any worth and probably never will. What? Even then, Adams takes pot shots at the mundanity of humanity and their tendency to gauge their worth by owning modern conveniences and thinking that possession is the impetus to happiness. And notoriously, Adams was an outspoken atheist and used Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as a platform to criticize the hypocrisy of organized religion. Hilariously, that element is present and accounted for in the movie, which for a Disney-produced movie is actually quite impressive. In fact, Adams doubled down on this with the addition of John Malkovich's character Hamakavula, who wishes to use the POV gun to convert people to his way of thinking. One suspects that if a sequel happened, we probably would have had a follow-up to this plot point. Even then, I admit with Adams' death, it may be for the best that a sequel never came, because apart from Terry Pratchett, also rest in peace, I don't know if there's another writer who's come close to matching Adams' writing style. Case in point. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, and coincidentally, the film really was ahead in many respects. First of which was casting Martin Freeman as Arthur Dent. At this point, Freeman's worldwide popularity was limited to his brief but revealing performance in Love Actually, and of course as Tim in the original Office. You know, the funny one. He had yet to become the international sensation he is now for Sherlock and The Hobbit. Now, say what you will, and you have, about those movies, but you can't deny he was wonderful in those movies. So it leaves one to wonder, if this movie had come out now, would it have been more successful? Part of Freeman's charm as Arthur Dent is that he still perfectly embodies all the endearing quirks of Arthur Dent, but his presence, his characterization, and his handling of Adams' classic dialogue are exclusively his own. Simon Jones is quintessential in the role, but his version of the character is more of a caricature of the British everyman, which I stress is not a bad thing, and perfectly fits in the productions that he starred in. But Freeman's performance matches the aesthetic of the movie. His Arthur is still the everyman, but he feels more real. You know that you met people like Freeman's Arthur Dent. Because Freeman is such a gifted comedian, his reactions to everything are pitch perfect. He is what makes the Vogon poetry scene hilarious. Whereas in the TV series Arthur is screaming bloody murder alongside Ford, movie Arthur has the ultimate what the f*** face as he drinks in the absurdity of the situation. This is the way I imagine I would react if a living political cartoon started reading poetry to me. Also, another angle the movie takes, which I actually feel is a definite improvement over the prior iterations, is the character of Trillian. I bring her up now because one of the major factors that resulted in both Freeman and Deschanel getting cast was the fact that their chemistry in the screen test was fantastic. In the book and the series, the character of Trillian always irked me because she came off as cold and callous. Now, walking off with Zaphod mid-conversation with Arthur is pretty dick, but after Earth is destroyed, she doesn't even bat an eye. I don't care who you are, but if you found out your entire species was obliterated and you were among the last of said species, you're not gonna be okay immediately after that. Whereas in the film version, we actually see the conversation between her and Arthur. You see the connection, you see the moment where Arthur blew it, and you even see why she would run off with Zaphod. And what's more, she actually has a reaction to finding out that Earth is destroyed. Normally, I'm not a big fan of Zooey Deschanel, but I'm not gonna lie. Her emotive acting when she's hitting Zaphod with the POV gun is outstanding. You can see the turmoil she feels because of the regrets that she has regarding Arthur. Particularly when she finds out that the guy she tossed him aside for signed the order to destroy Earth, and all because he thought someone wanted his autograph. Which, let's face it, that's just pure Zaphod. Now, for all my praising of Freeman, the performance that would make or break this movie was Sam Rockwell as Zaphod Beeblebrox. Zaphod as a character is pure narcissistic chaos, and that's a tricky character archetype to pull off for obvious reasons. When a character has an ego that goes into overdrive, it can be overbearing, and even irritating. The one way to make a narcissistic character entertaining is to show that the character is totally flawed, and that the character is mostly oblivious to those flaws. Mostly. That's why Zaphod has always worked as a character, and that's definitely why Sam Rockwell just nails it. It was said that Rockwell based his characterization on Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, and even added the rock and roll showmanship of Elvis. Those things ostensibly do not go together, and I think that's the point. This manic hybridization gives Rockwell's performance the perfect erratic edge the character needs, and for me, the funniest moments are when he loses his second head and his brain is reinvigorated with a lemon-fueled thinking cap. Now, despite appearances, this movie did not have the biggest budget. It was made for only $50 million, and it broke even domestically, and made an additional $50 million worldwide. I bring this up because there were complaints that they changed Zaphod's quirk of having 2 heads and 3 arms. Unfortunately, to pull off those effects, it would have been an expensive and time-consuming process. One that, in and of itself, would have been more trouble than it was worth. In American Horror Story Freak Show, Sarah Paulson actually quipped that doing that role was one of the most difficult, and a lot of it was because of the technical aspects and having to act with herself with two heads. So to the movie's credit, they came up with a visually imaginative concept of the Pez dispenser head action. They even threw in the idea that he split his brain between the two heads, so each one has one part of his personality. And what's more, the hidden head contains the portions of Zaphod's brains that aren't considered presidential, and that having those qualities aren't conducive to having a fitting commander-in-chief. Would you piss off? We're done with you! Of course, with that in mind, people are probably screaming that the TV series had a fraction of the budget and they pulled off the second head.
It means there's something down there they don't want us to have. And if they don't want us to have it that badly, then I want to have it even worse!
Did they? Did they really? I mean, I wouldn't say they pulled it off so much as they made a valiant effort. Unfortunately, it's also distracting as hell. I keep expecting the head and the fake arm to fall off Markwing Davies' shoulder, though I did laugh that Davey had the effects guy give his Zaphod 2 dicks. You didn't notice that, did you? And now you can't unsee it. Besides that, this movie also doesn't get the love it deserves on a visual level, and of course the ultimate trophy goes to Jim Henson's Creature Shop for the work on the Vogons, and it's just refreshing to see a movie champion practical creature effects on this scale, and the designs are just perfect. Seriously, these guys are the bastard children of the aliens from The Life of Brian. The rest of the movie is equally beautiful. The Heart of Gold set, that is just incredible. It looks like the spaceship equivalent of a luxury yacht, and the visual representation of the infinite improbability drive is so freaking bonkers. When the characters turn into sofas, ragdolls, and flowers, the theater I initially saw the movie in laughed and laughed hard. But of course, we do have to talk about Marvin, the paranoid android, and we are obligated, because, after all, he's voiced by Alan Rickman, and he's played by Warwick Davis. Funny story, I always heard the term stone was used as a unit to measure weight, 14 pounds to be precise. Warwick Davis actually commented how the suit practically outweighed him in stones, so when I met him, I asked him what a stone was, and there he explained it was 14 pounds, so thank you, hitchhikers, for giving me the incentive to learn that. I mean, it's no surprise the suit is so heavy. I mean, look at that head. He really does have a brain the size of a planet, and Alan Rickman's vocal performance is just as great as you would expect it to be.
Ah, please yourselves. Here I am, brain the size of a planet, and they ask me to take you up to the bridge. Call that job satisfaction, because I don't.
While I do love the design of Marvin from the TV series, you just want to hug the Marvin from the movie and just assure him that things are gonna be okay. Even though he'll probably give you a list of reasons why it won't. One added plot development for the movie occurs when Trillian gets arrested by the Vogons and forces them to go to the Vogon homeworld of the Vogosphere, where the planet is practically engineered to smack you into submission in order to discourage you from having anything that resembles an original thought. You notice how the Vogons had a smashed up nose and are slave to procedure and protocol? Now you know why. This whole sequence is easily one of the funniest in the film, and it makes me laugh every time they get smacked. Though the whole Q sequence is another winner. Adams knows that the core audience for this film are going to be the fans of the prior versions, and he took that opportunity to give us more than we expected. How is that a bad thing? The one sequence that is in every version that may have easily been done the best here, that is the factory floor sequence on Magrathea. This sequence works because the build-up is so deceptive. It starts off in a cheap-looking showroom, the kind you find in a disused portion of Epcot, showing crude models of all the planets the Magratheans have built. Then, Arthur and Slarty Bartfast, oh hi Bill Nighy, get on a rickety tram and slowly go through a rusty door, and then suddenly it speeds up, and I'm gonna tell you, I forget to breathe every time they arrive on the factory floor. It is legitimately awe-striking. And for extra measure, if you look in the background, there are Easter eggs. One of the planets is shaped like Douglas Adams' face, and then, meanwhile, for Doctor Who fans, there's Shada, the Time Lord prison planet. It doesn't even stop there when we get to see how the Magratheans build the Earth, and it's done in such a hilariously mundane fashion that you can't help but feel that this must be what it's like inside Adam's brain. Though the best conceived concept of the movie is arguably the most simple, the titular Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. First off, it's a tablet! It's a tablet before there was ever such a thing as tablets. That alone is a win for this movie. But inside the book is the guide sequences by the team Shinola, who did an excellent job of making the guide the centerpiece of the movie with hilarious animated sequences, all voiced by the inimitable Stephen Fry. This worked so well that the DVD menu was the guide that even came complete with an infinite improbability drive. Also, stay for the credits, as they do add an additional guide sequence. Leaves me to wonder how many of those Ford Prefect wrote, which I'm sure you're wondering why I haven't talked about Mos Def as Ford Prefect, and I do feel bad about that because Ford Prefect is actually my favorite character in all of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I am conflicted of how to proceed here because firstly, I love David Dixon as Ford, and I still have no idea why he never really got cast as the Doctor. But Mos Def, on the other hand, brought a wonderful alien eccentricity that Dixon really didn't have. The first time you meet him, you can tell there's something off about him. He looks like the kind of guy who'd be good to have by your side when traveling the universe. Mos Def also has some quirks that had me rioting, particularly how he runs into battle making screeching noises. Also, unlike Dixon, Mos Def actually uses the towel.
Ghastly, isn't it?
In the original series, they make it a point of how important towels are, but they barely use it. In the movie, you see it's used multiple times as a weapon. Arthur uses it as a scarf. The Vogons are intimidated by the towel. A towel is even used by Trillian to dry herself off. The towel is truly the greatest tool in the universe, and the movie version actually shows you why. Kind of an odd talking point to end this spotlight on, but that's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for you. It's a series that never played by the traditional narrative patterns. It doesn't have any real villains, it's just about life in the universe and how the universe doesn't play by the rules of just one civilization. While this film does have some typical film tropes, like a love story and some focal antagonists, to write this film off because it's not a straight adaptation of the book is kind of a contradiction to Douglas Adams' intent when he wrote the script. After all, were it a straight adaptation of the book, why would you ever want to read the book again? Is the movie perfect? Definitely not. I will say the lack of resolution with Hamakavula is frustrating, and Anna Chancellor's character is basically wasted thanks to some scenes that were cut from the finished version. Also, some of the sequences with the guide felt a bit rushed, like the one talking about Vogon poetry. But to say this film is a disaster? Absolutely not. Could it have benefited from some more rewrites from Adams? Sure. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was always an episodic story which, given its roots, is totally understandable, and Adams and Kirkpatrick worked to try and give this movie a better sense of flow. It gives some of the characters some much needed arcs, and it was ultimately made by a filmmaker who seemed to have a lot of freedom to make a film that's less Hollywood and more Cambridge. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is unadaptable for a movie? Or do you think that this is a worthy effort? Leave it all in the comments below, and for more addictive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click. Thanks for all the fish.